Hey everybody, long time no see. I don't even know when the last time I uploaded a video was. I think it was Port Austin back in July. It's now the day before September, so it's been over a month, I think. What can I say? Haven't been doing much. Been working, and my schedule hasn't really been we've been cooperating as far as taking trips and so forth. So haven't really been doing much. Haven't really been in the mood to work on the Queen, oddly enough. It's kind of strange. I just haven't wanted to. But we did do a couple of things, so I'll show you that in a minute. But first I wanted to talk about the most important thing that's happened lately, and that is that Sumo had to have surgery. While we were at Mike's shop the other day, he decided instead of continuing down the stairs all the way to the ground, he would try jumping off the second step, off the side of it. And ever since then, he's been limping on his left leg. And I know he had problems with his kneecaps, something called luxating patella, which basically means the kneecap moves from side to side. It's not sitting properly. But he never limped before. He was always just sort of stiff, but didn't seem to be in any pain. So I took him to the vet, and they looked at his knee, and they said the patella had gotten to the point where it had actually popped over to the side of his knee, and it was staying there and not staying in place anymore. So they said he needed to have surgery on both knees, one at a time. The vet wanted $1,900 a piece for those. And then the surgeon I found an actual veterinary surgeon here in town. They wanted only $1,300 a piece, which was over the course of both surgeries. That was a $1,200 savings, which was significant. So I went ahead and picked them for the procedure, and they started with the knee that he was limping on. And when they opened him up, they found that not only was his patella off to the side, he had torn his ACL, which was the tendon that basically holds the thigh bone straight or something like that. She showed me on the model. It made sense when she explained it, but I don't remember much of it. The point is, his knee was in pretty bad shape. Sumo, stop. Hey, stop. He's licking his stitches. Anywho, let me show you what condition he's in now. Hey, buddy. So they got his whole rear end here shaved. You can see the stitches right there. If the camera will cooperate. Frank, stop. So yeah, there are his stitches. Frank, honestly. Anyway, there are his stitches. And he's doing okay. I got him on pain medicine and antibiotics. And these stitches are coming out on the 11th, September 11th. And then it's going to be a full 12 weeks. He had the surgery on the 28th. Today is the 31st. So it's been a few days, but it's going to be a full 12 weeks before he's back to where he should be. But he's being very good. He's being a trooper about it. I just carry him up and down the stairs. I just got to make sure he doesn't use the stairs. And other than that, he's just getting pampered and treated like a baby until he recovers. And Frank over here, you heard him giving me trouble a minute ago. Hi, Frank. You aren't doing a whole lot either, are you? Just existing. He brought a rabbit into the house the other day. Had to get that out. That was lovely. Ow, I know. Okay. All right, anyway. What do you say we go into the Queen and I'll show you what we've done. Okay, so the last time we were in here, I was replacing the toilet. But if you recall, the original threshold wouldn't fit with the toilet here. So Mike made a new one for me out of copper. He had this piece of copper sitting around, and he managed to make a nice watertight threshold here so that I no longer have to use a shower curtain. And he made these little strips to direct the water down where it belongs. This is, I thought this was wood at first, but this is actually a waterproof material glued onto wood. So as long as these pieces remain in good condition, it shouldn't cause any problems. So I'm going to go ahead and continue using these doors. But in order to get the threshold to work right, we actually had to take this door off, and we had to manipulate it because, see this gap now? This gap wasn't here before. This was actually wrapped all the way around. But the problem was that they actually, the shower actually bows out right about here. It's actually bows that way, which means that the door was actually bent inward up here, which means that when you close the doors, they didn't sit flush to each other. So we had to pull this apart, put in some shims here, bring this door out this way, which now means that you got this gap here. So what I'm gonna do is I have to get some rubber to wrap around this and glue in place to create a nice watertight seal along here. And while we were in order to get this off, we had to take the mirror off. And when I took the mirror off, I looked in here, and there's a pipe right there. That is the vent pipe for the holding tanks. Now, if you recall, originally the toilet, I didn't have a vent for it. Actually, I did. I used this thing. This was the one-way vent to allow air into the tank when I dump. However, the problem that I found was when I flushed the toilet, because this was only a one-way valve, water could not get out of the tank to displace or air could not get out of the tank to displace the water that was going down the toilet, which meant every time I pushed the pedal to flush the toilet, air from the tank would bubble up through the water in the bowl, which is disheartening to say the least, okay? So, when I found that vent pipe, you can already see what I've done. I went ahead and got this hose, I attached it to the vent down there, see that? And then I brought it up, I drilled a hole in the shower, which I'm going to have to caulk. I'll caulk this later once I secure this in place. And then you bring that, I brought that up. The lighting kind of stinks, but I just brought it up. I created this series of connections. I had to actually cut the hose to size. That's what this aftermarket repair connector is here. And then into this adapter, into this 90, and then into that T fitting in the pipe. And it works beautifully. So now, when I flush the toilet, everything will be vented properly and I won't get any more gurgling through the water or anything like that. The green kind of is a little bit ugly, but I don't care, it's functional. As you can see, I still got to clean up, but I'm looking forward to getting rid of this shower curtain and being able to shower in here without a problem. Let's actually close this. See, this connects up here. I got to still re-caulk up there. We had to take all this apart and everything. I planned on recording that whole job, but then halfway through it I realized I had forgotten to record anything, and by then it was too late. But anyway, so yeah, this shuts, and as you can see down there, I think hopefully with this light, everything's nice and watertight. So all the water just runs down the door and back into the shower pan, all through here. And once I finish sealing this up, we'll have a nice watertight shower. It's kind of hot in here, so I'm kind of sweaty. Anyway, that's what we've done so far. But I have a couple of things I want to talk about, so let's go inside where it's air conditioned. Okay, so over the last couple of years, I've gotten a lot of questions regarding what my long-term plans are, particularly for this channel. A lot of people wondering, you know, are you going to go full-time in the van? Are you going to start traveling more? What's the deal here? What are you planning? And I figure I might as well address that question now. The short answer is no. I am not going to go full-time in the van. I spent a year and a half or 2 years living out of a semi. I've had my fill of living in small spaces over a long period of time. No thanks. However, I do hope to travel more, but that is a bit complicated because I do work full-time in addition to a side business, which, as you know, is rental properties. And also property management I'm starting to get into, where I'm managing properties that other people own. And I'm hoping that the side business will create an opportunity for me to stop working full-time as a trucker. I may still work seasonally, in the winter that is, to leave spring, summer, fall open to traveling. That would be the ideal scenario. So what I'm trying to do is build up my assets as far as the rental properties are concerned. Buy one property and then another and then another. And a lot of people have asked me, how are you able to do all that on a truck driver's salary? And that's a more complicated question. The short version of that complicated answer is I don't do it on a trucker's salary. I don't spend my own money, generally speaking. You make deals with people. You get financing. You this and that. You use the bank's money, basically. And then you keep the place occupied as much as you can. And then your tenants pay your loan off for you. And then you're left with this asset. So I started out back in 2009. That's when it all started. If you recall, in 2008, the housing market crashed. Just completely plummeted. Everything fell apart. The house of cards came down on top of us. People lost their jobs. People lost their homes. Houses were for sale everywhere. You couldn't go down a single street in this country without seeing a couple of houses for sale. And they were selling for nothing, relatively speaking. They were selling for less than most new cars in this area. So at that time, I was renting an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment for $400 a month, and the heating bill was through the roof because it was a lower-level apartment with no insulation, and so all my heat went upstairs, and my neighbors got to enjoy the heat that I was paying for. So even keeping my apartment at 55 degrees, I was still paying over $200 a month in the wintertime just to heat this little one-bedroom apartment. So I was paying a lot of money to live in a little space. And then my brother-in-law, my sister and my brother-in-law lived 8 houses down from this house. And they said, you know, that house down the street is for sale for 50 grand. It's got a nice garage and everything on it. And I said, yeah, 50 grand, like I can afford 50,000 bucks. What am I going to do for 50 grand? And at the time I was working as a security guard at a mall. Okay, so, and then my brother-in-law said, well, you know, the mortgage would only be about $450 a month. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I was already paying $400 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. So I wandered on down the street. I looked at this house and absolutely fell in love with it. And then a couple months later, I owned it. So that was where it started. I got this unbelievable house for 50,000 bucks, whereas a couple of years prior it would have been 120,000. So I got a great deal on this house, and then a couple of years later, oh, I failed to mention, I actually was married at that time. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I actually divorced. I was married for a very short time, but that's a long story that I don't want to get into. So, 2 years later, my mother-in-law needed a place to live. She was getting kicked out of her apartment. Long story there as well. So, I started looking at prices of houses and said, boy, they've come down even more in the last 2 years since I bought this place. So now we're in 2011, and on the south side of town, I found a little 2-bedroom house for $18,000. I think they were asking $18,500, and I picked it up for $18,000 or something like that. And it was a foreclosure, of course. There were almost all the houses for sale at the time were foreclosures. So I got that house really cheaply, and that was really my first rental property. She rented it from me for a while, and eventually I had to ask her to leave for various reasons that I won't get into. And then I just kept the property and continued to rent it out, and it was so profitable that a couple of years later, I found another house on in another part of town, 4 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, for $10,000. Yeah, you heard me, $10,000. Now, keep in mind that I had to put another $12,000 into it just to make it livable. It needed all new plumbing, all new electrical, new counters. It needed painting and carpeting throughout, things like that. But the bones of the house, the roof, the windows, the furnace, the siding, those were all intact and all in good condition. So now that house that I have $22,000 into, relatively speaking, is worth close to $70,000. And it's been rented the entire time. So my tenants have been essentially paying off the loan that I used to buy that property. And that house is almost paid off. The first one, by the way, is paid off completely. Completely paid off, and I own it free and clear, and I'm making profit on it. And the second one is almost paid off. It will be paid off by the end of this year if things go according to plan. And then last year, I bought that duplex that I showed you in my last video last year, if that made sense. And again, you take out a loan, you find the lowest interest rate you can. I think my interest rate on that one is 6%. And then you just pay it off as fast as you can. You have to manage your money. You have to manage your money perfectly, know exactly where every single dollar is going, and make sure you're paying your loans off as fast as you can. You don't take any money out of the business. That's the thing here. I have not taken a single dime out of that business. Everything has been going back to or paying off those loans so that those houses can become profitable. And then once you have equity, once you have these properties paid off, you can then use these properties as collateral to get future loans at an even lower interest rate. So then you've got collateral here, you use it to get a loan, you buy another property. This property that you just bought with the equity in those properties has equity instantly because you used the equity over here, not this one. So then you've got this house that already has equity that if you wanted to could then be used to buy yet another loan to buy yet another property, and so on and so on. Now theoretically speaking, you could snowball the thing as big as you want, but then you're taking a tremendous amount of risk by creating all these houses that are all balanced off of each other. So it's very important that you calculate the risk, which is why I'm only growing the business as quickly as I feel it's safe to do so. You pay one off, you buy another. You pay one off, you buy another. You pay one off, you buy another. And you just keep on going. Now, I didn't really mean to get into this long rant about how I did this, but this is what people were asking, so I decided to tell you. That's how I did it, and that's how I'm continuing to do it. I'm not using my own money from my trucker's salary. That money goes toward this place and the Queen and traveling. That's where that money goes. The rental business is all the bank's money. So, diving back into what my plans are. I am hoping that within 5 years to be able to quit my job or at least only work seasonally, and then I will be able to travel much, much, much more and create much, much better content for this channel. I know 5 years is a long time from now. I don't know if this channel will even still exist then. I hope it will. I honestly do. I hope it's still here 5 years and still going strong or even stronger than it is now. But I don't know what the future holds. Assuming this channel is still alive and still kicking and everybody still is watching, my plan at that point is to actually sell the African Queen and buy a school bus and build my own schoolie. I'm sure many of you have seen RV YouTubers that have school buses that they have converted into RVs. And I saw one that I thought was absolutely tremendous, and the guy did a beautiful job, and it completely inspired me. So then the next question is, would I go full-time in the school bus? Maybe. Maybe not 100% full-time, but I might move into the bus for up to a year, maybe even 2 years. I might rent out this house to allow it to pay for itself while I'm traveling, or I might simply, get a roommate and then accept a little bit less money so that I can still come back to this house whenever I want to. That sounds like a better idea to me, to actually basically rent out a room and have that person maintain the property while I'm away and pay me a small rent to make up for the costs of the property. Anyway, the point is that the future of this channel has a lot of possibilities. It's an exciting prospect for what my future holds, what this channel's future holds, and I'm really looking forward to doing it. I'm hoping you all will come along with me, and I'm hoping you all enjoy it as well. So that's all for today. I hope it was informative. I hope it answered your questions. And follow along on Facebook to see Sumo's recovery from his surgery. Facebook.com/RamblinMichigander. I'm posting a lot of updates there throughout the process. And yeah, I don't know when our next trip is going to be. Hopefully it'll be soon. It won't be next week because I've already gotten my schedule and all my days off are separated from each other. but hopefully I'll have another 3-day weekend coming up fairly soon. Worst case scenario, we've got a long trip planned in October. So I would be annoyed if we have to wait a full month before we take the RVs somewhere again, but just in case, that's what you have to look forward to in the worst case scenario. Okay, everybody? I'm sorry to rant so much, but I get excited about these things. So take care. We'll see you next time. And remember to follow on Facebook. Bye-bye.